शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योति नमोऽस्तुते।
Good evening, all of you. Good evening. We are already late by 5-6 minutes. We'll be starting now. Let other people who have already registered will be joined. Later we'll do. CRDE. This is conducting Tuesday webinar series. This is the 10th webinar series. So far we have conducted three panel discussions. One for higher education, that is for the degree college principals. Two for the principals of schools, secondary and primary schools. And one 2-day national webinar it is last year. We are publishing a newsletter also bi-monthly called as CRDE News. In case if anybody is writing any article related to education, you are welcome to contribute anything to that one. We will be publishing it. And if you give the details, contact details, we can give the this CRDE newsletter to each and every one of you. Today's master of ceremony is Dr. 𝐭𝐚𝐥𝐤. She is the principal of KG Sakseria Sarvodaya Vidyalaya, Malad, having more than 30 years of experience. She is also the ambassador of CRDE. CRDE is mainly interested in providing resources to the educators. So one or the other way, we will be providing the resources to the educators. Educators, when I say, it's not only meant for the principals or not only meant for the schools, can be for every section of the educational field. That is primary, pre-primary, secondary, junior college, and degree college. I welcome each one of you to today's 10th Tuesday webinar series. I request Leda ma'am to continue today's program. Leda ma'am, please.
Thank you, Suresh sir. Good evening and welcome one and all to yet another enlightening session on the topic most talked about, NEP 2020. CRDE, as Nair sir just said, is a platform for teachers and educators to experiment and implement ideas, innovations and collaborations to excel in giving our best to the student community. We at CRDE are like-minded individuals, passionate to learn and ready to share our knowledge. It is indeed an honor and privilege to introduce to you all our speaker for today, an accomplished visionary leader in the education sector. She has 24 years of teaching experience and 6 years of operational planning and administration experience. She's an expert in overseeing areas such as day-to-day operations, curriculum development, and standard setting for both students and staff to realize improved academic performance. She started her career early as a trainer with Intel Training teachers to use technology in the classroom and slowly progressed to become the vice principal with Navy Children's School in 2015. She has also helped and implemented budgets, policies, and procedures while supervising a huge teaching staff. She emphasizes on continuous faculty training to ensure the best education for her students. Madam is well known for being interactive with parents and a disciplinarian with active listening and problem-solving skills. A pie on the cake is that she'll be soon joining as the vice principal with Treehouse High School. Dear educators, please put your hands together and join me in welcoming Mrs. Nalini Kai, former vice principal, Navy Children's School, Colaba, who will enlighten us today on how to plan our lessons smartly in line with NEP 2020. Believing in the saying, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today. Over to you, Nalini ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And ma'am, thank you so much, Dr. Lata Venkat ma'am, for this introduction. And I would also like to thank Dr. Suresh Nair, President of Center of Resource Development for Educators, for giving me this opportunity to share my views with all of you. And of course, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all the participants here who have come to attend this webinar. So as ma'am said, our today's topic is lesson plan keeping in mind NEP policy 2020. But before I start this, we have all been attending a lot of webinars, lot of seminars on NEP. But I think it is very important for all of us to have a quick recap of what is NEP. And then I will talk about what is the teacher's role in implementing this NEP in the classroom. And finally, how we are going to make a creative and an appropriate lesson plan for our classroom. So, I would like to have a very interactive session. I just don't want to keep talking, and I don't want all of you to just listen to me, but you must also participate and share your views. You can always, share your views in the chat box, which is available. So coming to NEP 2020, I will just touch this very briefly because, we all have gone through these kind of webinars a number of times. But I think it is still very important for all of us to know that what NEP, at least the key points. So can someone tell me that how many parts are there in NEP 2020? In our national policy, it is divided into how many parts? So you can all either unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. Your answers can be in the chat box. Anyone? Yeah, you can unmute and also say, please be active and participate. So how many parts is the NEP divided into? Yes, audience, I'm waiting. 4, okay. Mrs. Chandna Tiwari has told me that there are 4 parts. Very good, Chandna. So these 4 parts of the policy are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Only right now we can see only a new education policy.
Yes, sir. I'm not able to move to the next slide. Just 1 minute. Okay, so there are 4 parts of this policy: the school education, higher education, other key areas of focus, and implementation of practical knowledge. When we talk of NEP, what does it mean for the educators and promoters? It provides STEM education integrated with other subjects. And for parents, it is going to be better learning outcomes for children. And as far as the students are concerned, more in-depth learning to become innovators. So how has the academic structure changed? What is our present academic structure? Again, I would like to hear from the participants. Anyone who would like to answer, what is the present academic structure? The present academic structure?
10 plus 2 plus 3.
Yes, we have 10 plus, I think my slide is again stuck. 1 minute. The existing academic structure is 10 plus 2, and the new academic structure is going to be 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, where the first 3 years, first 5 years, it is going to be Anganwadi and play school, and then it will be your regular school. So our formal education will start when the child turns 3 years of age. Early childhood care and education, this is the foundation of learning. So currently, children in the age group of 3 to 6 are not covered under 10+2 structure, but with NEP, they will be part of our formal education. What are the key highlights of ECE? ECE comprises of alphabets, languages, numbers, counting, colors, shapes. They're going to learn, logical thinking, problem solving, drawing, painting. And it also includes focus on developing their social skills, good behavior, ethics, personal and public cleanliness, and also teamwork and cooperation. So these are all key highlights of early education system. What is the foundational literacy and numeracy? Here it is the ability to read, write, and perform the basic numeric operations. That is the foundational literacy and numeracy. And if you see the current status, 28.1% of the students in class 3 could do simple subtraction, and only 27.2 children in class 3 in rural India could read a class 2 level text. So the learning crisis starts very early. Over 70% children in class 3 do not have the basic reading and arithmetic skills. So as per NEP, increased focus is going to be on the foundational literacy and numeracy. And this will include the reading, writing, speaking, counting, arithmetic, and mathematical skills. Coming to the next stage, that is the preparatory stage. This is going to be for 8 years to 11 years for classes 3 to 5. Here, the focus will be to provide meaningful situations, bilingual approach, and encourage questioning. So the classroom is going to learn in a playway method. They are going to discover, they are going to have a lot of activities. They are going to interact. They're going to have discussion, and they are going to work in a collaborated manner. The next stage is the middle school stage, where there'll be specialized faculty, experiential learning will take place, coding and internship, and of course, NEP stresses on bagless days. So if you look at the present status, the medium of instruction is English. But in the revised status, the medium of instruction is going to be the local or the regional language up to minimum grade 5, wherever possible till grade 8. And present status, our second language is Hindi and third is Sanskrit. That is going to continue. Now, what is the role of government in this? So both the central and the state government, they will invest in large number of language teachers in all regional languages around the country. So role of the school to incorporate the vocational training will be all students will participate in 10-day bagless period between grade 6 to 8, where they will intern with the local vocational experts, with carpenters, gardeners, potters, artists. And similar internship opportunities to learn vocational subjects may be made available for classes 6 to 12, including their holiday periods. And children will be given periodic exposure to activities outside school through visits to historical monuments, visit to cultural and tourist importance, meeting the local artists, and also visiting higher educational institutions in their village or in their district or state. Now, as far as the vocational education at secondary and higher secondary level is concerned, in addition to traditional academic courses, vocational courses will be offered in classes 9 to 12 in secondary school, and students will be allowed to mix and match academics with their skill education, with sports and arts, with soft skill training, and expansion of implementation of vocational education at secondary and senior secondary level also. So here the key shift is that the students are going to have the flexibility to choose their subjects. The policy is not very rigid. So the policy states that there will be no separation between arts and science. There will be no separation between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic activities. So the key highlights on board exams, as far as NEP 2020 is concerned, it will be it will continue for 10th and 12th, and board exams will focus on testing core capacities, no rigid separation between arts and science streams, and flexibility to choose your subject as per your preference. And boards might develop further models for exams like annual, semester, and modular modes. In modular modes, you can have the final assessment and also an improvement assessment. Our assessment pattern has to be totally changed. We cannot assess the child at the end of the year or at the end of the term. It has to be a continuous process. So we have to track their learning. We have to track their learning outcomes. So shift of assessment from one that is very summative and primarily tests the rote memorization to that which is going to be more regular and formative. And once we continuously assess them, of course, the report cards will also change. So the report cards for all the students will be completely redesigned. And this will be done by the states and the union territories under the guidance from proposed National Assessment Center, NCERT and SEERT. And the progress card will have holistic and 360-degree dimensional reports. Now, what are the major reforms in the higher education? NEP focuses on 50% of gross enrollment ratio by 2035, holistic and multidisciplinary education, that means flexibility of subjects, and there'll be multiple entry and exit for undergraduate program 3 or 4 years, for PG program 1 or 2 years, integrated 5 years, bachelor's and master's, and of course, MPhil is going to be discontinued. Credit transfer and academic bank of credits and higher education institutions, that is research intensive and teaching universities and autonomous degree granting colleges. And model multidisciplinary education and research universities will be open in almost every state. Now, NEP also supports the gifted students, the students with special needs. They also have certain talents. So you have to discover what is their talent. You have to nurture them. You have to develop them. So NCERT and NCTE will develop guidelines for the education of gifted children. So topic-centered and project-centered clubs and circles will be encouraged and supported at the school level. So they will have a variety of clubs. They will have drama, debates, those sports circles, health and well-being clubs. Also, Olympiad and competitions in various subjects will be conducted across the country. So premier educational institutions like IITs and NIT, they would be encouraged to use merit-based results from the national and international Olympiad and results from other relevant national programs as part of the criteria for admission into their undergraduate program. So these were just few basic points that I have touched of NEP 2020. There is lots more, but these are the main points which we need to keep in mind. Now, as a teacher, what is your role? What is the role of a teacher in implementing NEP? So it is a well-known fact that teachers play a very important role in shaping the life of the students. NEP 2020 also insists that teachers truly shape the future of our children, and they play the most important role in nation building. But how? By creating high quality of human resources in their classrooms. So as teachers, it is very important how you will implement NEP, and this will require discarding the age-old practices of memorization and rote learning, and you have to adopt the constructive pedagogies. You have to go beyond your textbooks. Your aim should not be just to complete the syllabus. Your aim should be to achieve the learning outcomes. So educators must understand and embrace the concept of integrated and multidisciplinary approaches. And this is the need for the development of 21st century skills. So While implementing NEP at the ground level, it becomes imperative for the teaching fraternity to have a very strong coordination, cooperation, motivation to transform the student's life through skill and character building. So here the teacher plays a very important role. As a teacher, when I enter my classroom, I have to be well planned because I am the role model for my students. So let's see the concept of lesson plan. How can we make an appropriate to the point lesson plan, which will have all the details that a teacher needs to keep in mind before she starts her class with the students. So what are the features that transform a lesson plan? What kind of lesson plan is required for experiential learning? What kind of lesson plan is required for high order thinking skills, for cooperative learning, and how transforming this lesson plan can be designed. So all these are the dimensions given as per the National Education Policy 2020. So the development of the nation, it depends 10% on infrastructure, 25% on the natural resources, and 65% on human resources. And we teachers, we educators, we contribute to the development of human resources. So 21st century teachers have a very challenging role to play. They should be trained for the skills that they need education system. So the teacher is the king of the classroom. She must design the lesson plan in such a manner that every child wins the goal. Each and every child must achieve success. So when you plan your lesson, it is very important that you plan what you have to teach, how you have to teach, and she must teach the student how to think rather than what to think. So NEP stresses on how the teacher should plan a lesson so that they provide the opportunity to perform. The students are given the opportunity to perform. The process of thinking is very important here. How are you going to make the child think? So teacher must know her target. You must know your target group. Who am I teaching? What is the capability of my student? What is their level? Where am I going to take them from this level? What am I teaching? What is my content? Is the content appropriate for the age that I am teaching? Then how will I teach it? What techniques and what methods will I incorporate to teach a lesson? And how will I know if the students have understood? Now, at this point, your assessment pattern comes into picture. When I have to learn whether my child has understood the topic or not, I will assess the children. I will make an assessment tool to see whether the learning has taken place or not. So keeping all these in mind, a teacher should be able to hook the attention of the student. Now, a proper structure should be provided by the teacher for her content. She must organize her content, the ideas, the activities. Also, you must organize the experience in the teaching learning process. So the main responsibility of the teacher is to make every student responsible for his or her activity. The student must feel important in the process of learning. They should feel that they are responsible for the activity that they are doing. They are responsible for their learning. So you have to bring them to that level. A teacher must open the door for all the students to learn, to explore, communicate, participate, and to reflect. So all ideas should be welcome. Nothing is wrong. So let them have the liberty to share their views and thoughts. You must always encourage them. So that is how they build up their confidence, when they are given the freedom to share their ideas and share their thoughts. In addition to technical knowledge and content knowledge, teacher must also promote collaborative learning. This collaborative approach is very important because then the students share ideas, they interact with each other. There is a brainstorming session. They have classroom discussions. So they work in a team, in a collaborative manner. So teacher must know how to engage the students, her class constructively. They must get motivated to learn by doing. So is it possible to make a lesson plan where each and every child is involved? Yes, the new NEP stresses on that when you make a lesson plan, you have to be very clear of each student's role in the learning process. Our teaching strategies have to be changed as NEP stresses more on teachers' responsibilities. So teachers have to change the strategies and methods. You have to change them from rote learning to creative, innovative methods of learning. Learning by doing. That is our aim. Now, how do we transform our lesson plan? You know, we all have been making lesson plans, and we just restrict our lesson, our teaching to that 35 or 40 minutes of period that has been allocated to us. Here we have to see how we are going to extend this period. While planning a lesson, a teacher has to plan, you know, what she's going to do with the children, how the activity is going to take place, how are they going to be divided in groups, what kind of resources are you providing them, and are you checking their knowledge in between? So there are a lot of factors that I need to keep in mind when I am planning my lesson. So every teacher has to plan an individual lesson plan. I know my students, I know their capabilities. It might differ from class to class. So every teacher, keeping their students in mind, must plan their individual lesson plan. And the teacher has to get creative and innovative while planning her lesson. Definitely, everything has to be planned in advance. When we have a family function, don't we plan for it? I have a wedding in the family. So what will I do? I will, you know, first decide the date, the venue, and then I'll prepare a guest list, send them invitations. Then I will look at the decoration, the menu. There are a lot of things, lot of events which are going to take place during the wedding. So I am going to plan everything before the actual event takes place. And if it is very successful, that means my planning was good. Similar is the learning process which is going to take place in your classroom. You have to have an advanced plan. Unless you plan your activities, it is very difficult for you to ensure that the learning takes place in a proper manner. But for all this, what kind of format do we adopt? We must have a format where each and every detail of the lesson can be mentioned. So as per NEP, what should our lesson plan be like? What, why, and how to do the activities in the classroom? Teacher must be confident of the activities that she is going to take up in the classroom. Teacher must be, she must give proper guidance. Proper instructions have to be given to the students so that the learning takes place. You have to use a variety of methods. You have to become very innovative, very creative. Of course, your lesson is planned, and then while the learning is going on in the class, if you feel there is a requirement to add more things, that can be done. So there is a flexibility of adding up more things to make the classroom more effective. And if you're well planned, then you can handle the unplanned surprises very smoothly. When I plan in my lesson that I'm going to divide the children in 3 groups, each group is going to have 6 children. And when the activity actually takes place in the classroom, I realize that one particular group is not able to do the activity. Probably they have not understood, or they are getting stuck. So I need to push them. So these are some surprises that come on my way. Or I realize that some child wants to adopt another technique to do that activity. So I should be prepared for it. And also, as a teacher, you must ensure that the children stay on track. When I have an elaborate lesson plan, any substitute teacher coming to my class can use that plan, and she can continue from where you have left. And of course, your lesson plan can be recycled anytime. Now, these are the secrets of daily planning, the 4 major components of lesson planning. That is our objective, learning outcome, that is really important, the procedure for delivering instructions, what material is going to be required to carry out the lesson plan, and of course, different methods of assessing the students. The key elements that we need to keep in mind while planning a lesson is, what is our target group? What is their previous knowledge? How is their behavior in the classroom? What is their learning ability? Once I'm clear on that, then comes the learning outcome of the lesson. What is the student going to learn? And what will be the change in his behavior after the learning has taken place? Then comes the context of learning. That is the situation in which something is learned or understood. A situation that can impact how something is learned. And of course, what kind of resources and material we are going to provide them. And then see if the child has learned something, then they have to be assessed. So what assessment strategies are you going to follow? Now, we also have to concentrate on these principles, the aim. What is, the goal must be realistic. Our objective should be very realistic. Variety of activities can be planned. Are you involving students in the activity? Are you putting technology into use? Is it going to be a movie? Is it going to be a presentation? Is it going to be in a form of a drama? So use different sources. And you must also have flexibility. In case while teaching, you feel that the student is not able to understand, then certain methods you should have the flexibility to change the technique. Suddenly, I realized that, 2 children are blank in my classroom. They're not able to carry forward the activity. So I must have plan 2 ready with me. I must have another technique ready with me to make them understand. Learnability, keep the target group in mind. So don't make a very complex lesson plan. Make a very simple lesson plan, keeping the target group in mind. And the last principle is the linkage. This is really important. The stages should be linked into one another and also to real life situations. So teachers, we have all been making lesson plans where we have lesson specifics. We write the date, we have the length, that is from which period to which period is the lesson going to be taken, the lesson title. And when we come to the students column, we have number of students that are going to learn, what is their age group, and what is their ability. Coming to learning objectives, this also, what is the learning outcome of our lesson? Now the lesson structure is really important. Here, the first point is the introduction. How am I going to introduce the lesson? Am I going to divide the children into groups, or is it going to be individual activity? What kind of activity am I going to involve them in? And what is the previous knowledge of my students? So once all this is clear, then comes the main activity. And then the most important point here is the third point, that is connection to other subjects. So we are talking about qualitative education. National education policy is focused on sustainable development goals. When we have to achieve the sustainable development goal, there is only one media to give direction to this goal. And what is that? That is education. So when we talk about sustainable development, we don't see any subject separately. All the subjects are interrelated to each other. This is what NEP stresses upon. All subjects should be connected. They should be interrelated. And of course, how and what will be the ways to assess the children's learning? What kind of homework we have to give them? And finally, conclusion is, what have they learned? What was their learning objective? Have they achieved that? And you have to also connect them to the real life situations. Now we have to see integrated lessons and interactive classes. So even if the classes were online, how can we involve all students? How can the lesson become activity oriented? So as per NEP 2020, we are looking at the holistic development of the students. We are looking at 21st century skills. That is, pedagogy must evolve to make education more experiential, more holistic, more integrated. It should be inquiry driven. It should be discovery oriented. There should be a lot of discussions. Of course, flexibility, and the student should be able to enjoy. So we have to engage the students in learning process. We have to empower our learners. They should be made to feel important. They should be involved totally in all the activities. And when we do that, they will learn to communicate, they will get creative, they will work in collaboration, they will work with each other in a group. So after all this, you have to provide them space for reflection. That is, what have they learned? Are the students asking you questions? So you have to take, as teachers, as facilitators, I must say, you have to take them to a level where they get inquisitive, where they start asking you questions. And that is where the self-learning takes place. So coming to differentiated instructions, as per this, as per the requirement of the students, you have to modify your lesson plan. So differentiated instructions is based on modification of 4 elements. The content, so teacher must have the vision to design the content. The process, so what process you're going to adopt, so you should have flexibility in the process. And product, that is the assessment. How will you assess the knowledge of your students? So you must have multiple assessment tools. You know, just one question paper with 20 questions and 1 hour given to the students, we cannot assess them. Every child has a different capacity. Every child learns in a different manner. So we must have different modes of assessing them. So there should be multiple evidence-based assessment. This modification is guided by teachers' understanding of the students' needs and students' readiness, interest, and their learning capabilities. So did we think of all this while we were designing our lesson plan? No, but now we have to. We have to redesign our lessons. We have to make our lesson plan in such a manner that the questioning strategies take place. You know, the students are forced to question. And the questioning must be put in such a manner that we are able to assess what the child has learned. The universal design for learning has certain principles. First principle is the what of learning. So what is the content and how can the content be modified? How can you modify so that when it is put forward to the target group, they are able to understand? So that is our first principle. The second principle is how of learning. How will they learn? By interacting in picture form, by drawing, or by using technology. So the child can use any method, any mode to learn. And the third principle is the why of learning. Give them different activities, keeping, of course, their capabilities in mind, you must plan a variety of activities for the students. Coming to self-directed learning, this is an instructional strategy. Here, the teacher is guiding the student and the student takes the ownership of his own learning. So the teacher is just a facilitator and the learner has taken the responsibility to learn by doing. So, when the teacher has to act as a facilitator, the student must be motivated to do the self-learning. That's very important. So self-directed learning is a spectrum where it has a pattern. So when you talk about high degree of self-directed learning, here the student decides what he needs to learn, what methods he will adopt. He will design the activities. He will pursue it in his own way. So here there is highest level of freedom given to the student. And when we come to the low degree of self-directed learning, here the onus is on the teacher. So teacher is more active. But with the new education policy, we are looking at high degree of self-directed learning. So the student must be motivated, he must be encouraged to learn by doing. And you have to act as a facilitator. So a good lesson plan for making that, educators have to be very innovative and very creative. If you see the first 4 points are in a different color, because I feel this we have already been doing. Who is the target group? What is the context of learning? What should be the learning outcome? Resources and material required. But what I have written in red color, these 3 points, we really need to think about this, keeping NEP in mind, because NEP is stressing on these points. Learning should be holistic. So subjects have to be integrated. And how will you do that? Because we just have a period of say 40, 45 minutes. Now we have to think of experiential learning. We have to think of activity-oriented learning, exploratory approach. So how, what kind of planning are you going to do and how that is going to be extended? So this we have to really think and brainstorm now. Different educational strategies that you need to adopt. And of course, the learning activities and tools to be used. Assessment strategies we always had. But these 3 points, I feel we really need to think about them and come up with more creative and innovative ideas. Another very important aspect of our NEP is experiential learning. So as per Albert Einstein, the only source of knowledge is experience. Our NEP has stressed a lot on this. So experience can never go wrong. When we do something, we observe, we learn, and we experience. And every child can interpret his or her experience in a very different manner. So what is experiential learning? It is the process of learning through experience. And more specifically, learning through reflection on doing. So we are giving the students the opportunity to experience, but how is that learning going to be reflected? How are they going to express what they have learned? So if you see the Kolb's theory of learning, the learner must be willing to be actively involved in the experience. So here the student has to be motivated by the teacher. It is the onus lies on the teacher. How are you going to motivate him to learn? And once they are motivated, the learner will experience, they will explore, and then they will reflect on their learnings. And before they reflect, there is a process of analyzing in their minds. So the learner will have to use the analytical skill to conceptualize their experience. And when the child conceptualizes, there is again a war of thoughts in his mind. And they are made to take a decision. So here the learner must have the decision making and the problem solving skills in order to use the new ideas gained from their experience. Definitely, there are a lot of benefits of experiential learning. It builds competencies, merging theory with practice. Learning by experiencing is far more effective. It is because they are doing the activity. They are learning by their experience. So that lasts for a longer time. It builds grounds for self-motivation and exploration, offers opportunities to students to think freely. They should have the freedom to express their views. They have to, you have to listen to them. You have to be patient. Students can operate differently without losing their confidence. And why do we need experiential learning? Because this solidifies the learning. Definitely, because they are doing it on their own. So it definitely solidifies their learning. It is easy to implement. And most important, it is required for our millennial brain. And this experiential learning, it is going to build up the communication skills in the students. They will learn how to work in a collaborative manner, critical thinking, creativity. Lot of creativity will take place when they do experiential learning. Now, critical reflection, it is the theory that the child learns and how does he apply the theory to practice. So when he learns by doing, it is very natural for him to ask questions. Thus, the learner becomes more, the learning becomes more deeper because he's questioning. Questioning can be either from self or from the peer group or from the teachers. But questioning should be encouraged. Once questioning comes into picture, we all know that the child is learning. Thus, we can assess their learning. So if there is questioning, that means they are thinking about it, they are analyzing, they are conceptualizing. So the learning process is taking place. Now, how are we going to assess that learning? And how are they going to reflect? How are the students going to reflect what they have learned? So there are different modes of reflection. And we must give them the liberty to choose the mode of reflection that they want to use. They can reflect their knowledge by telling, that is in the form of presentations or leading classroom discussions. They can reflect by writing. They can write journals, they can write blogs, they can write logbooks, portfolios. Then they can use media. They can use, they can make a video or photographs or essays or digital theories. So teacher must promote any one of these reflections because then we will have more variety in the classroom. So give them the freedom and flexibility to choose the mode of reflection. And of course, we have to assess them. We have to, assessment of experiential learning should involve more than just did they experience. So you have to have a clear rubric for it. How are you going to assess their critical reflection? And then you have to assess them at different levels. It is not that I give the students the activity and I leave them and I assess them at the end of the activity. In between the activities, I need to see whether they are learning, is learning taking place, how far have they learned. So I can have small assessments in between their entire activity. And depending on the assessments, I have to give them feedback also so that they improve. And why do you assess the students? It's not about the right answers. It's about the analytical process to get an answer. So the process is important. How is the child learning? So there isn't always a right answer, especially in a qualitative class. So try to make your classroom more qualitative. Why? Because every child is different. Every child, every individual has a different way of thinking. Their learning might differ. So your lesson plan has to cater for each and every student. Sometimes you will have just a numerical answer. So don't stress too much on the right answer. It is the time and process that counts and not the right answer. Now, the classroom of experiential learning. In the classroom, certain level of adversity to push the cognitive learning is required. So make the classroom very challenging. Have activities to push the students to learn. So you must start your classroom with mind warm-up. Use a lot of movements to get the kids focused. Teach them to collaborate before expecting success. You must use quick writes when you want student reflection. That means I can just have a small quiz in between their entire activity to see if they have learned something or not. I can just ask them a one-word question just to check their learning. Then run a tight ship while giving instructions. That means your instructions have to be very clear. They have to be very precise. The child should be able to understand what he is expected to do with your instructions. And definitely we must use a fairness cup to make students think. Use signaling to allow everyone to answer your question. So every child must be given an opportunity to share his views. Now, there are different ways, different strategies of experiential learning. This experiential learning can take place when there is a role play, field trips, films and documentaries, video projects, guest speakers, art-based activities, group learning by students, and the most effective strategy of experiential learning is peer tutoring. And of course, games and puzzles. So when we talk of lesson plan for an experiential learning, we have to decide very realistic goals. So these are certain points, realistic goal, choosing the topic and the content, and then I must know the student needs and talents, because I have to divide them into group. So every group must have students with different capabilities. Then use a range of teaching approaches and methods. Select appropriate resources. Experience should be linked to real life. This is really important. And of course, a fair assessment and evaluation. So when I keep all these points in mind, it is very easy for me to plan my lesson. So your lesson plan can have the following points. You can have, of course, learning objective is definitely there. Teacher's activity, you have to be very clear as a facilitator. What are you going to provide to the classroom? I am not a teacher here. I am not going to the classroom to teach them the concept. I am only a facilitator and I have to make the children learn on their own. That should be my aim. So as a facilitator, what are the activities that you will plan? How will you divide them into groups? And then coming to students' activity, this column is going to be very elaborate. Is it going to be an individual activity for the student, or is it going to be a group activity? How they are going to do it? What resources are they going to need? How much time are you going to give them? So are we planning them after every stage? So we must have an assessment plan ready. We must have evidences for those assessment plan. Teachers, we can also start a lesson where we make the students do individual activities, and then once they come up with a result, we put them into different groups and continue further with the same activity. So it is up to a teacher. The flexibility is in your hands. So every teacher can have different ideas to conduct a particular activity. And at the end, you have to see what is the intended result. Have they achieved the learning? Have you achieved your learning outcome? And how are you going to relate them to the real life? How is the behavior of the student changed after learning this? So that will come in your last column. Now, lesson plan for high order thinking. According to the learning pyramid, the average retention rate after 24 hours is just 5% if it is a lecture method, 10% if it is reading, 20% if it is audiovisual, 30% in the form of demonstration. And when there is a discussion in the classroom, 50% of it can be retained, 75% by practice doing, and maximum retention is 90%. That is when you teach others. If you look at Bloom's taxonomy, this was revised in 2001 by Lord and Anderson, a taxonomy for learning, teaching, and assessing. So in this, the highest order initially, when we have all done Bloom's taxonomy in our B.Ed, the highest level was evaluation. But now it has been revised and the highest level is creativity, the creative mind. So what new can be produced? That is the highest level of teaching and learning. So NEP stresses a lot on collaborative approach. And in the classroom, students learn better when they are with the peer groups. So the individual learning also takes place, and that differs for all the children. But when everyone learns in a group, in a cooperative manner, they are doing an activity together. And at the same time, individually also the learning is taking place. So cooperative learning demands connection of ideas so that they can achieve the goals together. What kind of atmosphere I should give? What kind of classroom atmosphere I have to give to the students for collaborative learning? How will the students be divided into groups? Each team must have mixed ability group of students. Each one's idea should be encouraged. They should be respected. And how will they be monitored? How will you monitor them? A very conducive environment has to be provided to the students so that the learning takes place. And when this learning takes place in a collaborative manner, there is cooperation between there is communication that takes between the students, and they also learn how to coordinate with each other. So why should we have collaborative learning? Why collaborate? Because they share responsibilities. We save on time, definitely. Share skills and perspectives, sharing expertise. It increases their efficiency, builds social network, it promotes problem solving, and share and support technology integration. Now, when we look at expected behavior in the group, everyone must listen to each other. When you have divided them into group, they must listen to each other. You have to ensure that they stay on task. They don't deviate from the topic. Also, the ideas should be praised. They should be encouraged. Everyone must be involved in the task. It is not that in a group only 2 students are working and rest of them are just sitting and observing. Every child should be involved in the learning process. And they must feel comfortable to ask for help if it is required. So everyone must encourage the group members. Now, when I talk of cooperative lesson plan, cooperative learning lesson plan, we have to choose the groups appropriately. How are they going to present the content? What teamwork research will go on? Then how are they going to do the presentation? And of course, assessment is very important. How are you going to assess them? So when I design a lesson plan, can I please request the participants to mute themselves? Kindly mute yourself because there's a lot of noise. How am I going to design, how is this designing of transformative lesson plan format taking place? So as a teacher, how do I start? what is the level of my student? So you must have the basic knowledge. What is the level of my student? Have an overview of it. What material I'm going to use to do this activity. Then what are the teacher support documents that you need to prepare? What standard I am teaching? Pre-instructional considerations. That means how am I going to give them instructions so that it is clear for the students what activities they have to perform. So I have to engage my student, I have to make them explore, explain, extend, and all this will take place and they will reflect their learning in some way or the other. So a teacher has to assess this reflection. So if you look at this table, engage, explore, explain, and extend, all this takes place and the student is able to reflect his learning. And as a teacher, as a facilitator, I am supposed to assess that learning. And then only they can relate it to real life situations. So please think and design your lesson. It is very important. No, we have to come up with different ideas, different strategies of making an effective lesson plan. So I have discussed few points which I feel are very important, keeping NEP in mind. So when you think and design your lesson plan, your learning objective, the teaching point, what do you want the students to identify at the end of the lesson? That should be clear. Your strategies have to be very clear. What are you actually doing to help your students? Then what kind of material are you going to provide them? Questions that you need to ask for checking their knowledge in between. Independent practice or group work, however you plan it. Then what is the evaluation? How will I evaluate my students' work? What is the rubric? What are the indicators? And finally, how is the child going to reflect his learning? How is he going to share his work? In what way? In what way? Because you know your classroom the best. You know the students' capability the best. So give them that freedom and let them come up with techniques of presenting their learning. And finally, summary and follow-up is how will you end the lesson? So what will be the end result? How will the behavior of the student change at the end of the lesson? What have they learned? And how are they relating that to the real life situations? So these are certain points that we all need to keep in mind. And when I think of a teacher, I think we have to come out of that old method of going to the classroom, writing the topic on the blackboard, and start explaining the topic. Give an introduction, explain, do an experiment with the children, and then ask them some questions, and your lesson is over. No, our entire strategy has to change. You are going to be just a facilitator. You are not going to be a teacher. A facilitator can at times become a learner too. When I make the students do some activity in the class, even I might learn something new. So you are only facilitating the learning, the entire learning process, and you have to empower your learners, that is the students. This is the requirement of the new education policy, and how best you can do it in your classroom, it is entirely in the hands of the teachers. Teachers, at the end, I would just like to share a small video. It's just about 2 minutes video that I came across on the net. The difference between a facilitator and a teacher. I hope you will enjoy this.
The physically adult, I would not even say mentally adult, but the physically adult people in this space, their purpose in this space is to facilitate that. Facilitate the idea going to and fro, not just going from top to bottom, but from coming from everywhere. So everyone is learning from everything. So we do not have students and teachers, but we have learners and facilitators. And sometimes the young ones become the facilitators and the olders are learners, and sometimes the olders are facilitators and the young ones are learners.
I grew up in an environment where I was always taught. So I feel it's a very boxed thing. So it's somebody's idea which you follow or somebody's learning. When we talk about facilitator, it's my own learning, but there is a person, there is a subject expert who facilitate the process. So it's a wide area, and you can learn, or you really go as far as you want. So I think that's the difference when you're being taught or when you're being facilitated.
Well, typically what we have in our school is one facilitator to about 4 to 6 children. Yeah, that's how it is. It can go up to 8 to 10 max, I think. Yeah.
I think in other schools, teachers don't concentrate on you understanding the subject. They just want you to run through it and just
get results in exams.
And here they take time and to make sure that the student understands what he's learning.
In other
and
schools,
studying.
they don't care whether the child learns or not, but here, learning is the most important thing.
A teacher in a traditional setup would be somebody who stands there and imparts knowledge, sort of, I would think, like a one-way street, right? The teacher stands there saying, I know, and I am going to give that knowledge to you. So the facilitator would be like the opposite of that, where I am there, I am observing what's happening, and I let the children, whatever's happening with them, I let it happen. I can't say I let it happen, it happens. And if needed, I would step in. But at many a point, I'm just an observer, and sometimes I'm also a learner. I would say that is the main difference between being a teacher and a facilitator.
Thank you so much. I hope the points which I discussed today with all of you, they'll be of some help to you to plan your lessons effectively. So Lata ma'am, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you will be too small a word to express our sincere gratitude to you, Madam Nalini, for such an enlightening session accompanied by a very apt PPT. I'm sure we all have a large takeaway from today's session and are more enlightened and empowered to adhere to the needs of teaching as per NEP 2020. If, with your permission, I just summarize whatever I could note down. I was so impressed that my pen was moving continuously. Let me just give a small recap for all those who joined in late or missed in about a few points. We began with recap of NEP 2020, the teacher's role in NEP, creating an appropriate classroom, the 4 parts of NEP, the change in the academic structure from 10 plus 2 plus 3 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, the various stages in NEP. The first stage, that is the ECE, the key highlights of ECE, namely Foundational Literacy and Numeracy. The second, the preparatory stage, wherein meaningful situation and a bilingual approach was necessary. The middle school, where experiential learning took place. Then, following not a too rigid policy, having flexibility in subjects, and the key highlights of the board exams like 10th and 12th to continue. A change in the assessment pattern, learning to be tracked, and we go back to our continuous and comprehensive assessment from the summative one to the formative. We'll have new redesigned report cards, which will be absolutely holistic and 360 degrees dimensional. There'll be major reforms in higher education. There'll be support for gifted students and students with special needs. The role of teachers in implementing NEP by adopting constructive pedagogies, giving an end to rote learning, going beyond the textbook. Everything was wonderfully explained with the help of the PPT, ma'am. The lesson plans, how transforming lesson plans can be designed, development of the percentage of the importance of teachers was very well highlighted. 10% on infrastructure, 25% on natural resources, and 65% on human resources, for which we teachers are responsible. Ensuring success of each child, a teacher must encourage, I love this quote, minds to think, hands to create, and hearts to love. That was wonderful. If we could really make every child follow our policy in such a way that we end up creating every child with a mind to think, a hand to create, and a heart to love, of course, we have made a wonderful citizen. A teacher's responsibility, making responsible students who will be successful. The what, why, and how to do activities, proper guidance, varieties of methods and teaching aids. And yes, if well planned, can handle unplanned surprises. That was nice. Unplanned surprises are what we are in day in and day out, and we are at a loss to, tackle the moment. That was nice. Key elements to be kept in mind for a lesson plan: the target groups, the learning outcome of less, context of learning, resources required, the assessment strategies. The lesson plan, how it has to be. I don't think, ma'am, in my 37 years, I've come across such a extremely detailed lesson plan and so well framed. The PPT was so well explained, self-explanatory that nothing more was necessary. Lesson specific, pupil specific, objective specific, and the structure. The integrated lessons and the interactive classes. The beautiful pie diagram sort of NEP 2020, what it aims at. Holistic development, 21st century skills, engage and empower learners, communication, creativity, collaboration. All summed up together, a wonderful output, a student who will be able to handle all 21st century problems. Multiple evidence-based assessment, the UDL, the universal design of learning, where the what, how, and why of learning holds importance. I could, go on and go on, ma'am. I was so impressed. Nothing less, nothing, a lot of doubts and lots cleared. And I'm sure all the educators who have joined in for today's session will surely agree with me that there's a lot of takeaway. So, dear madam, thank you so much for being with us today for this enlightening session. My sincere thanks are also due to Dr. Suresh Nair for empowering us by connecting us to such good speakers with session after session. We are 10 sessions down the lane now, and every time it has been a big takeaway and enlightening speakers. I'm also thankful to Deepa Desai ma'am, who though not present amidst today, plays a very important role in coordinating to make these things happen. Last but not the least, my gratitude to all my friends and educators for attending today's session. First think, then believe, then dream, and finally dare. And I'm sure with Nalini ma'am's session, today's session, we are all directly up to the fourth stage to dare and take ahead the NEP 2020. Thank you so much once again. Let me end with a little request. We have such empowering sessions coming up on Tuesdays every month. So why not enroll more and more of your friends, colleagues, educators, whoever is in the field of education. There is no entry fee. Anybody is welcome. It's just a learning platform, a platform for sharing our knowledge. So welcome all. Thank you all once again for being here. And thank you very much, Nalini ma'am, for your time.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ledda ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ledda ma'am. I would like to add two to three lines. First and foremost, Nalini ma'am, it was very much informative and excellent session. You have covered whatever has been promised. I mean, how particularly as you have began with the NEP 2020 recap, but then everyone has attended so many NEP 2020 webinars earlier, but no one has covered the lesson planning and how we should go to the classroom for different purposes to fulfill the objectives of NEP 2020 as such. You have covered all the things. I hope the educators who have attended today's session will be definitely benefited from your session, ma'am. And definitely we have recorded this session also. We'll be putting it in our site also, because your aim as well as our aim also to train more and more educators to implement NEP 2020 in a right spirit. And I would like to thank our technical support, Mr. Indrajit and team, for without any problem, we could conduct today's session very properly. There was not at all a technical glitch today. I would like to thank each and every members who have, though officially Ledda ma'am has thanked them, but still on behalf of this ICRDE, I would like to thank each and every members, each and every participants today for attending today's session. As she has already informed you, the membership to CRDE is entirely free of cost. Please visit CIRDI.in, CIRDI.in, and go to members arena. Just join. You don't have to pay anything. Only thing you have to give your name, details, address details, as well as your signature and photograph to be uploaded. Your photograph and signature, please keep it on desktop after scanning ready so that it can be uploaded. Otherwise, nothing else is required to become a member. And please do become a member because we want your support for each and everything. Even today also, I don't know what had happened because 78 participants have been registered since last 3 days, but only 27 or 28 could attend. So I don't know anything have happened to them. But anyway, those who have attended today, please become the members, and we will be giving this type of informative sessions henceforth. So once again, thank each and everyone, and thank you, Nalini ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir.
Also, please become a member, and in your school, please vary your tree house you are going to find. Please inform them to join, and by joining this, and there is no what you call obligation to anybody that you should do this, that, and all. Nothing is there. If at all you want, you can attend. If you attend, you will gain definitely. If you don't attend, nothing you are going to lose.
Yes.
Like, please be with us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Indrajit.